Hello everyone and welcome back to Cherry Lanes, where today we are going to break down the results for the Battle of the Butters that I've been conducting over the last 2 weeks. If you follow me on Facebook and or Instagram, you might have seen this whole crazy process take place, and thank you so much for participating in my Instagram polls where I asked you lovely home bakers how you usually choose your butters and what brand of butter you typically go for in your regions. So, according to butterjournal.com, there are essentially 15 different types of butters. Yes, 15, I know. I had no idea either. From unsalted to salted, sweet cream, European-style cultured ghee, clarified, drawn, whipped, spreadable, light, organic, whey, raw cream or compound butters. And I would like to add another one to the list, which is halal butters. I'll leave some information in the description below about all these butters if you're interested in knowing a little bit more about them. Okay, so first things first, let me just share a little bit about my process. So because Cherry Lanes is a baking channel and baking typically calls for unsalted butter to be used, I went out and looked for 8 different brands of unsalted butter commonly used here in Western Australia, which were, first of all, President butter, which is a French milk-based butter made in the heart of Normandy in France. Second, Lewis Road Creamery butter, which is a New Zealand butter derived from milk produced by grass-fed cows. Third is Davondale butter, which is an Australian butter made from fresh dairy milk. Fourth is Mainland butter, which is an organic New Zealand butter made from organic milk. Fifth is Western Star's Chef's Choice Unsalted Butter, which is an Australian cultured butter made from pasteurised cream and is also a milk-based butter, which happens to also be the butter I usually go for everything for no real reason other than because they have done fantastic at psychologically marketing this product to me, and it's also pretty cost effective for a butter that calls themselves Chef's Choice. 6 is Lurpak, which is a Danish milk-based cultured butter made from fresh cream. 7th is Coles Home Brand Butter, which is a milk-based Australian butter. And last but not least, number 8, I use a no-brand unsalted butter that was sold in Coles. And this is actually a New Zealand butter according to choice.com. However, for this no-brand butter, I also couldn't seem to find information on whether this butter was whey or milk-based, cultured or pasteurized. But for me, I think it doesn't really matter unless you have allergies to worry about or you are specifically trying to find a halal-friendly butter that is milk-based instead of whey-based, as that is one of the concerns behind halal-certified butters. And the difference between cultured and pasteurized butter simply refers to whether the milk or cream used to make the butter was pasteurized by being treated with heat to kill the bacteria, or cultured, which involves adding bacteria to form curds. Now, majority of bakers who responded to my Instagram polls did say that flavor was key in how they chose their butters over price. However, several people did respond saying that they simply go for whatever's cheapest in the supermarket, and I personally believe that there is absolutely nothing wrong with being smart with your money and going for your cheapest option butters, especially when you're making a simple cake where you're going to incorporate other prominent flavors, like say you're making a chocolate cake, where your cake or whatever baked good you're making doesn't solely rely on the flavor of butter to make it tasty. Unlike a butter cake, where you definitely want to make sure that you choose your favorite butter with the best flavor, which might also be a cheaper home brand butter. Let's find out. However, when it comes to more delicate pastry baking, like when you're making croissants, that's when we should care a little bit more about the precise type of butter you're using. You want to make sure that you're using a butter that does not soften too quickly, has really good plasticity, and of course, one with the most prominent butter flavor, in your opinion, because croissants heavily rely on the flavor of butter to make it tasty. For this reason, I decided to conduct this battle of the butters by insanely making 8 batches of properly laminated croissants in one go, using the 8 aforementioned types of unsalted butters, and broke them down based on, firstly, fat and sodium levels per 100 grams, soften speed at room temperature, flavor, color, plasticity, and price per 100 grams. Now, in phase 1 of the flavor tests, I recruited 7 independent everyday food lovers just like you and me for a blind taste test where they were instructed to taste all 8 croissants and grade how prominent they felt each butter flavor was from a scale of 1 to 5, taking small bites and going back and forth until they were satisfied with their gradings. Only after I received their gradings back did I reveal what butter was used in which croissant. I tried my best to ensure that they did not discuss their preferences so as to reduce any influence they may have on each other. So now, without further ado, for phase 1 of the flavor tests, these were the results.
Alright, now leading with the best flavor we have Coles home brand butter scoring 22 points, followed by the no brand unsalted butter at 21 points, and Danish Blue Park butter standing closely with a strong 20 points. And coming close, we have Mainland and Western Star butter scoring a whopping 18 points, followed by Devondale scoring only 14 points, followed by President Butter at 12 points, and Lewis Road coming in last, unfortunately coming in last with only 11 points.
Honestly, I was really surprised that President Butter scored so poorly in the first round that I decided to add President Butter to the mix for phase 2 of the flavor test. However, before I go on to phase 2 results, I think it's worth sharing that out of these 7 taste testers, only 3 voted for Coles home brand butter as having the most prominent butter flavor, and 3 voted for the no brand butter as having the best butter flavor. And as you can see from the circles here, several taste testers did find that some butter flavors were comparable to each other. So just from this image, I think most of you can already tell what I'm trying to get at, that taste really is very preferential depending on your palate, and once again, none of these taste testers knew what butter was used in which croissant, only until after I got their verdicts back. So what I'm hoping to achieve here in the flavor test is more of just a general idea of which brand of butter has the most appealing flavor according to the average everyday person. Now, for phase 2 of the flavor test, I chose 8 different individuals who weren't part of phase 1's flavor test to rate these top 3 butters and included President Butter to the mix so I could corroborate to closer accuracy which butter really had the most appealing and prominent butter flavor. I followed the exact same process as phase 1, gave them the same instructions, and they all also had no idea which butter was used in which croissant until after. So, not so surprisingly this time, no brand butter came in first with 29 points, followed closely by Coles home brand butter at 27 points. Then surprisingly, President Butter came in third at 24 points, and finally Lurpak not far behind at 23 points. What I found interesting is that although President Butter scored 1 point higher than Lurpak overall in phase 2 of the flavor test, none of the taste testers rated President Butter as their ultimate favorite out of the 4 options. So what I'm deriving from this non-academic and pretty poorly controlled experimental research, as I didn't conduct this research in a lab of any sort and I'm not claiming that I did, is that branded or luxury butters, in my opinion and based off this study, truly did not equate to a more appealing or prominent butter flavor. So how do the results of the flavor test correlate with the fat and sodium content of the butters? In seeing how both Coles home brand and the no brand unsalted butter both scored exceptionally well, taking first and second places in both phase 1 and 2 of the flavor test,
tasty grass.
You can see here how they both also have the highest total fat content per 100 grams compared to all the other butters. So I digged a little deeper to try find academic studies on the role of fat in flavor perception and sense of taste. While one study revealed that brain activity associated with flavor perception of sweet emulsions was significantly more activated in non-fatty samples, they also emphasized the importance that this does not necessarily mean that lower fat products increases a person's perception of flavor. Another study revealed that different individuals have varied taste sensitivities for fat that influences dietary behaviors, reporting that individuals with a decreased sensitivity to fat taste are associated with an increased consumption of fat. This simply means that some people are able to taste fat more easily than others. However, the controversy behind whether fat actually has taste remains open for research to be able to have a more definitive conclusion on whether fat can be classified as our sixth sense of taste. In saying that, older studies have reported a link between palatability to higher fat contents in foods. So in reviewing these studies and comparing them to my personal findings, I would say that there might just be a small correlation between higher fat content and palatability, as well as flavor perceptions of butter. However, as you can see, Lurpak has also one of the lowest fat content per 100 grams, and it also scored exceptionally well in the flavor test, leaving the correlation between flavor and taste with fat content to continue to be inconclusive. And let me just quickly go through the sodium content of these butters. As you can see, Lurpak unsalted butter is the only butter that actually has 0 grams of sodium added to it, and Western Star has the highest with 18 milligrams. I'm also really pleased that both Coles and No Brand butters maintain pretty low sodium content, which tells me that both groups of the taste testers were more than likely not influenced by sodium content tricking their taste buds into reporting better flavor preferences. Now, in terms of soften speed at room temperature, Lewis Road Creamery butter softens the fastest and also has the poorest plasticity, where based on comparing the 8 butters, I gave it a score of 0.5 stars simply because after a few bends, as you can see, the butter simply cracked instead of staying elastic, meaning this is not the butter that you'll want to use for making croissants. Western Star and President Butter both soften the slowest, where President Butter has a pretty good plasticity with a score of 4, and Western Star having one of the poorest plasticities with a score of 1 out of 5. I'm assuming the reason why President Butter is so highly recommended online for making croissants, other than because it is a French butter and croissants are French, would probably be due to its ability to retain its composition at room temperature. Simply put, the fact that President Butter does not soften so easily at room temperature, combined with its reasonably good plasticity scores, results in this butter being ideal for croissants. However, the flavor scores reported from this little study does not convince me to use it. Please don't hurt me, French people. No Brand unsalted butter softened the 3rd quickest and has a poor plasticity score of 1, meaning this butter is also not quite suitable for croissants. But because this butter performs so well in the flavor test, I reckon it will actually be fantastic for baking deliciously buttery cakes and cookies. Now, looking at Coles and Lurpak butter, you can see that Lurpak softens the 4th quickest with a comparably good plasticity score as President Butter at 4 stars, whereas Coles home brand butter softens the 2nd slowest with a pretty good plasticity score of 3.5 stars. I would say that both Coles and Lurpak butters will perform really well in making croissants with exceptional butter flavor prominence, where using Lurpak might require you to work a little bit quicker and in a cooler environment than if you were using Coles home brand butter. Now, looking at color, butter actually has a natural pale yellow color that can range from deep yellow to white depending on the fat content of the butter as well as what the cows feed on. Grass-fed cows carry a yellow pigment called beta-carotene found naturally in grass and flowers, which is why Lewis Road Creamery butter derived from the milk produced by grass-fed cows had the deepest yellow color. Grain-fed cows, on the other hand, produce much paler butter in comparison as grains do not have much beta-carotene. On top of that, some dairy cows may be fed a combination of grass and grain depending on the seasons, where in the winter they might need to be brought inside from the pastures and fed grain. In saying all of this, because beta-carotene is only a pigment, and while it does contribute to how we psychologically perceive taste, the color of butter does not actually affect anything other than how using a paler butter will result in paler baked goods. And when it comes to price, here's just a quick overview of the average price per 100 grams of each of these butters from most to least expensive. So, in conclusion, and a quick summary for those who skipped right to the results. First of all, branded luxury butters compared in this study did not equate to better or more prominent butter flavor compared to the Coles home brand or no brand options. Different individuals have varied taste sensitivities to fat that influences dietary behaviors. Controversy remains on whether fat actually has taste, and more research is required to be able to decide if fat can be considered our sixth sense of taste. There might be some truth and correlation behind the common statement that the higher the fat content, the better the flavor, but scientifically that is not definitive. Coles home brand and no brand butters reported the best and most prominent butter flavor for both phase 1 and 2 of the blind flavor test, followed by Lurpak. No brand unsalted butter had the highest fat content at 83.6 grams per 100 grams, followed by Coles home brand at 83.1 grams of fat per 100 grams. Western Star had the highest sodium content for an unsalted butter, followed by President and then Lewis Road Creamery butter. Lewis Road Creamery butter softens the fastest, whereas Western Star and Precedent butter softens the slowest. Mainland butter had the best plasticity of 5 out of 5, followed by Devondale butter at 4.5 stars. Precedent and Lurpak had comparably good plasticity scores of 4 out of 5. Comparing soften speed and plasticity, I would say that Devondale, Lurpak, Precedent, and Cole's home brand butters would work great for croissants because they soften the slowest and have excellent plasticity, where using Lurpak or Cole's home brand will likely result in a more prominent butter flavor. Butter color depends on whether the cows were grass or grain-fed or a combination of both. Grass-fed cows produce deeper yellow butters due to the beta-carotene pigment found in grass and flowers. Color psychology makes us believe that deeper yellow butters will taste better as it looks more appetizing. However, the color of butter does not actually affect taste. Lewis Road Creamery butter had the deepest yellow color, and Precedent butter was the palest, followed by Lurpak. Pale butters will result in paler baked goods, and deeper yellow butters will result in deeper golden yellow baked goods. Now, Lewis Road Creamery is the most expensive butter, followed by Precedent and then Lurpak. And not surprisingly, of course, no brand unsalted butter sold at Coles was the cheapest, followed by Cole's home brand. So in a nutshell, I will probably start using Cole's home brand butter from now when I'm making simple cakes and cookies, as they also do not contain any artificial flavors or colors either. And when it comes to more delicate pastries like making croissants, I will likely use Lurpak. Hey, so you finally made it to the end, I finally made it to the end, and all limitations will be addressed in the description below. And if you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, share this with your friends and family, and let me know in the comments what butter you usually go for in your regions. Peace and love everyone, and till next time, I'm Cherry Lane.